In Venezuela, the National Electoral Council confirmed 12 candidacies for the July 28th presidential election. In Haiti, authorities report no progress in the process of establishing a new government due to disagreements and recent death threats made by criminal groups. In the UK, the High Court of London decided to postpone its decision on the appeal of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, charged in the United States for disclosing thousands of secret documents. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, in the early morning of this Tuesday, the National Electoral Council confirmed that there are 12 nominations of candidates for the presidential elections of July 28th. 11 of the candidacies are of opposition tendency, and in total 35 political parties of different tendencies have supported and registered the 12 candidates. The names registered so far are Nicolás Maduro, postulated by the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Luis Eduardo Martinez for Democratic Action, Juan Carlos Alvarado, nominated by COPEI, Antonio Ecarri will be the candidate of Progressive Advance, Daniel Ceballos of the Arepa Party, Benjamin Rauso of the Conde Party, Javier Bertucci ran for the Party of Hope for Change, and other organizations. The President of the National Electoral Council assured that requirements will be thoroughly reviewed to make sure that the 12 candidacies comply with the legal requirements. During his speech at the National Electoral Council, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro thanked all who have supported his candidacy and reaffirmed that the coalition is part of those who have for a project, the future of the country, a project that has been designed after years of sacrifice and debates with the Venezuelan people.
We have a project for a country. Of course that we had, because we have a plan. Is the result of years of experience, from the hardest years, and from a wide and permanent consultation and debate with our people.
The Bolivarian president also announced the arrest of 2 members of the far-right opposition party, COM Venezuela, who were involved in an assassination attempt against him during the rally in support of his presidential candidacy.
Captured today 2 men with weapons that were trying to attempt against my life. They all declared and they form the part of the far-right party, the fascist party in Venezuela. They are in prison and they were captured here in the procession. But they couldn't, and they will not surrender us. With the Holy Trinity in front of us, we always conquer.
On Monday in Haiti, members of the Transition Council declared that there is no progress in the process of establishing a new government in Haiti due to disagreements and recent death threats made by criminal groups against some of its members. In this sense, Dominique Dupuy, the only woman on the board, decided to resign after threats from the criminal groups who maintain control in Port-au-Prince, while the weekend meeting called to form the council also failed. The main disagreement is focused on the name of who should head the board, and the date when the transition government team will be formally announced is unknown. On Monday, a United States judge ruled that the Mexican government could move forward with a lawsuit accusing 5 Arizona gun dealers of participating in the trafficking of weapons and ammunition to drug cartels across the U.S.-Mexico border. In this regard, U.S. District Judge Rosemary Marquez in Tucson rejected arguments that a U.S. law that provides the firearms industry broad protection from lawsuits over their products' misuse precluded Mexico's claim against the gun dealers. Mexico alleged that the gun dealers facilitated trafficking of military-style assault weapons like AR-15 and ammunition to cartels through reckless and unlawful practices, including firearm sales to straw purchasers who illegally bought them for others. High temperatures persist in Costa Rica with values between 2 and 3 degrees above average. The National Institute of Meteorology stated that the highest temperatures in the country were registered in the towns of Palo Verde and Cerro Huacalito, with 40.9 and 40.6 degrees Celsius respectively in the North Pacific. In the Central Valley, temperatures were a little cooler, between 33 and 34.5 degrees Celsius. Experts warned that the temperatures recorded during the last days will remain for longer, so they recommend citizens to avoid outdoor activities during the hours of strongest sunshine. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Russia, the Moscow ombudsman in district court on Sunday revealed that two detainees suspected of a recent attack on the Crocus City Hall concert hall have pleaded guilty. The detainees, Dalder Son Mirzoev and Sidecar Rami Rasha Balisora, admitted their guilt in the attacks that killed 100 people. The decision of the Moscow court, and in order to satisfy the investigators' request, the suspects were remanded in custody. The court also ordered the arrest of Shamsidin Fariduni and Muhammad Sovir Faizov, two more suspects in the terrorist attack of March 22nd. The attack on the Moscow concert hall left at least 137 dead and over 180 wounded. Russia's central bank on Monday recommended that banks and microfinance organizations write off the debts of borrowers killed in last Friday's attack on the Crocus City Hall concert. The agency noted that lenders should also provide the necessary support to those affected in accordance with their requests until full release of obligations under the loan or credit agreements. The shock in Russia continued on Monday following Friday's terrorist attack, which left over 137 dead and more than 100 wounded, which remain in hospitals. On Tuesday, the High Court of London decided to postpone its decision on the appeal of WikiLeaks founder charged in the United States for disclosing thousands of secret documents. For the time being, Julian Assange will not be extradited to the United States. The High Court in London postponed the ruling until May 20th, pending assurances that the application of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which protects freedom of speech, can be relied upon, and that he would not be subject to prejudice at trial or sentencing on the basis of his Australian nationality. The court also wants assurances that he would not be sentenced to death if convicted espionage for the 2010 publication of thousands of classified documents related to the U.S. war crimes in Afghanistan and Iraq. British farmers drove their tractors outside the UK Parliament in central London on Monday to protest post-Brexit trade deals, which they say threaten food production. Approximately 100 tractors from around the country converged in Westminster, where they blared their horns and displayed slogans including "Support British farmers" and "Brexit is a disaster." The UK has signed several trade deals since it left the European Union in early 2020, some of which farmers say are allowing poorer quality food to come into Britain from countries with less stringent regulations. They also claim that the UK policy to pay farmers to create habitats for environmental reasons was taking land out of food production. More than 130 school children kidnapped by gunmen in northwestern Nigeria earlier this month were released unharmed on Sunday. According to the army, the hostages were freed in the early hours during a rescue operation, but it didn't provide details. The children arrived on Monday at the Kaduna State Government House to meet with the governor of the state, Ubasani. They were kidnapped in Kuriga, Kaduna State on March 7th, an action that was considered one of the biggest attacks on the school in years and which triggered protests across the country over the insecurity in the nation.
Today, the children are here. For us, they will soon be with their own families and their parents. That is more important. As a government, our most important responsibility is the protection of lives and properties of our citizens. That is why we're here. That is why we're in government.
Anti-establishment candidate Basiru Diomaye Faye on Monday was said to become the youngest president in Senegal's history after his rival conceded the race. The announcement marks a stunning victory for the 44-year-old, who was only freed from prison 10 days before Sunday's election. The results are not yet official. It's the first time in 12 presidential votes since Senegal gained independence from France in 1960 that an opposition candidate has won in the first round of voting. His main opponent from the governing coalition, Maduro, 62, recognized Faye's win and ran him to offer his congratulations. Outgoing President Macky Sall, who did not stand after wins in 2012 and 2019, also congratulated him.
En m'élisant président de la République,
by electing me President of the Republic, the Senegalese people have chosen to break with the past, to give substance to the immense hopes raised by our vision of society, which our vision of society has aroused, and to give substance to their aspirations. I pledge to govern with humility and transparency, and to fight corruption at all levels. I pledge to devote myself fully to rebuilding our institutions and strengthening the foundations of our way of life together.
The commemoration of International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade on March 25th sought to combat the racist legacy of that process and promote justice for the victims. Since 2006, the United Nations General Assembly established the Transatlantic Slave Trade Outreach Program, which designated March 25th of each year as the date to raise awareness of this tragic page in history. The United Nations estimates over 13 million Africans as victims of slavery driven by the racist ideology that these women, men, and children were inferior because of the color of their skin, despite the resilience shown by enslaved people. The racist legacy of the transatlantic slave trade persists today in prejudices and negative beliefs that are still perpetuated and affect people of African descent around the world. We are going to take a short break now, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. On Monday, the UN Security Council passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip during the month of Ramadan. The resolution, approved by 14 votes in favor and the United States abstention, comes after the ambassador to Mozambique, Pedro Comisario Afonso, presented a draft resolution demanding Israel's cessation of hostilities. The official expressed his gratitude to all the members of the Council for their contributions to this draft resolution and to put an end to the genocide in the Gaza Strip. Afonso stressed that the situation in Gaza is a matter of grave concern for the entire international community because of its catastrophic consequences.
Señor Presidente,
Mr. Chairman, the situation in Gaza is of grave concern to the entire international community. Indeed, the escalation of violence in the Gaza Strip, its catastrophic consequences, represent a clear threat to the international peace and security. In this context, the E10 felt compelled to submit this draft resolution before you.
In this regard, the Russian representative to the Council, Vasily Nebensia, demanded before the United Nations the fulfillment of the provision of the first agreement, whereby Israel must immediately cease firing on the Gaza Strip.
We would like to propose an oral amendment to the text and bring back the word permanent to the first paragraph, and then it would remain as it was in the previous version. We demand an immediate ceasefire for the month of Ramadan, respected by all parties, leading to a sustainable, lasting ceasefire. And we also demand the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, and that humanitarian access be guaranteed to meet their medical and other humanitarian needs. And we further demand that the parties comply with their obligations under international law in relation to all those they detain. Thank you very much.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres criticized those who oppose the creation of a free Palestinian state. During a meeting with the Foreign Minister of Jordan, Ayman Safadi, the UN Secretary General insisted that the solution to the conflict in Gaza consists in the creation of two states that can fulfill the expectation of both Israel and the people of Palestine. Guterres asserted that a ceasefire is essential and called to move away from the cynicism of surrendering to the dominant assumptions and to reject Tel Aviv's occupation of the Palestinian territories. The UN Secretary General said that the international community is beginning to build consensus to end the Israeli siege against Gaza.
And that is why it is so important that finally the Security Council became able to approve a resolution asking for a ceasefire in Gaza. But at the same time, it is our duty to do everything to mobilize the whole of the international community, and I see a consensus emerging in the international community, even in the countries that are friends and allies of Israel. I see a consensus emerging that this war must stop.
The Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi warned that Israel is not listening to the international community and called for a halt to what he described as radical and racist groups that condemn the future of the region.
The Israeli government is not listening. They're still reaffirming that they will go into Rafah, and I would just conclude by saying that we cannot allow a group of radicals, racist, extremist ministers to doom the future of the region to more conflict and more war, and more immediately, we cannot allow them to continue to kill with impunity.
The number of civil society charities has increased significantly in Syria since the beginning of the crisis in March 2011 until today. These entities, beyond their charitable action, are one of the main pillars of the country's recovery process in the current post-war period. Let's see the details in the following report.
Under
the supervision of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor, more than 1,700 non-governmental Syrian charities are currently operating throughout Syria for the benefit of its citizens without any distinctions. These charities are dedicated to helping families affected by the war, the blockade, and the earthquake of 2023, and rely mainly on volunteers, humanitarian activists, donors, relevant government institutions, and international humanitarian organizations in their work.
Internally displaced persons constitute the main social sector that we seek to help, both with food baskets and with money. But we have also been present during the coronavirus pandemic, supporting official efforts to ensure vaccines and medicines. And now, with the support of donors and government institutions, we are working to help all families affected by last year's earthquake. We appreciate the work being done by the charities because their work really plays a decisive role in helping citizens to recover the normal course of their lives, so that together with the official management, their performance is essential for people to move forward in the midst of the current difficult economic conditions.
The work of these organizations is not limited to charitable works, such as the distribution of food baskets and the financing of medical treatments and surgeries, but extends to cover other sectors such as job training projects and scientific, medical, heritage, environmental, artistic, literary, and other development initiatives. This work is of vital importance to consolidate the steadfastness of the Syrian people and their determination to move forward in the current difficult circumstances of economic warfare in the country.
Our country suffers from a foreign-imposed economic war, marked by unfair coercive measures and the so-called TeleSUR law of U.S. sanctions, which added to the repercussions of the coronavirus pandemic and later the effects of the earthquake made life more difficult and significantly reduced the purchasing power and the ability of citizens to finance medical treatments and surgeries, and therefore the number of people who turn to these charities seeking help to overcome these difficulties is increasing.
Las asociaciones benéficas de la
Civil society charities in Syria play a role in the current circumstances that complements the government's effort to improve the living standards of citizens. In addition to improving the sense of individual and social responsibility and developing the meaning of teamwork, this work promotes social solidarity as one of the main tools to overcome the aftermath of more than 13 years of war and foreign-imposed blockade.
Hisham Wanous, TeleSUR, Damasco, Syria.
In Cuba, the board membership of the Classical Dance World gathers in Havana to celebrate the 26th International Meeting of Academies for Ballet Education. The celebration will take place from March 22nd to the 30th, and it will be dedicated to the 110th anniversary of the birth of Fernando Alonso, who took part in the consolidation of the art of ballet in Cuba. The program includes a competition segment, which will be key to stimulate the scenic creation and the preservation of the classical, romantic, and neoclassical ballet collection. The meeting will include the participation of professionals from the ballet world to evaluate the performance in each category.
These meetings are also important at this time as a tribute to that great teacher Ramona de Sá, better known as Sherry, who was one of the initiators and directors of this school for a long time, and who was a national methodology reference. The meetings also maintain the legacy of Master Fernando Alonso, Alicia, Alberto, of those founders who made possible for us to be in Cuba talking about the Cuban School of Ballet today.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.